Welcome to the Sell Better Daily Sales Show, where we bring you daily sales advice to help you sell better. This is a live cold call, live prospecting, live email, live DMs with Tom Alaimo, founder of TA Sales, and all around great guy to know in the sales space. He's well connected, does a lot of great things, creates a lot of content, and we'll tell you more about what he's got coming up for everybody here in a second. Scan this QR code, sellbetter.xyz. Check us out on YouTube, where you can get all types of tips, techniques, and takeaways from our show every single day. Shout out to our friends over at Magical and Gong. This show is brought to you by Magical and Gong. Magical automates the way that you sell. We work really hard to find these processes that are pragmatic and work for us and our buyers. And it helps when we can systemize that process. So that's what you can do with Magical. This is what you're going to see today. What does Tom do when he starts prospecting me and the Sell Better team? And then, of course, we're going to see a lot of his strategies in real time. I'll do my best to describe them, if I can, in very short form for the folks that are tuning into the podcast, but I think you're going to understand this as we move forward. Tom will be as descriptive as possible as well. I think nurture and direct sales look a little different, and we want to talk about that. Tom, let's start with research. Put a 1 in the chat if you at least spend 5 to 10 minutes researching before you send the first message. Put a 1 in the chat if that's you. And if you're a leader and you don't actually do the outreach, put a 1 in the chat if you are supportive of this practice, because a lot of people say you don't need to do research. I completely disagree. Tom, you said that you start 3 different places when you begin researching. It's the problem, the company, and the individual. Now, you're going to share your screen so you can show how you would prospect me as we move forward. And look at all of the SDRs and AEs that are in the room. Y'all are going to learn a lot today, so buckle up. Let's go, Tom.
Let's do it.
Prospect me.
All right.
Tell me.
All right. So are you on my problem prospecting guide here, James?
We sure see it.
Okay, cool. So we want to start at 3 levels, right? So what I'm going to do over the next, couple of minutes is I'm going to prospect Mr. James Say What Sales Buckley here. Okay, so just so we see, I've got a couple tabs up. One, this is a sheet that I use to try to understand the problems that my prospects have. If I can't speak to this in a really crispy way, then my cold email or my cold call or my LinkedIn message is probably going to fall short. Yeah. So usually I might take 30 minutes if I was starting at a new job to really line all of this out. But for James's sake, I'll make this pretty quick. So the first question I ask is, who is his persona? He's leading content, live shows, partnerships, things like that. These are things that it seems like if we look at James' LinkedIn profile that he cares about. Okay.
Yeah, for those of you listening to the podcast, you can find out all that stuff in my about section and in my job description.
Yeah. Typically I would have the same problem that I sell to all the time. And I don't always sell to people that put on live shows, but if I did, let's say that James' problem is that he's having a hard time, or he might be having a hard time, getting great guests for the show, right? It's challenging. People are busy. People have full-time jobs. I'm not paid to be here. I'm doing this because I love hanging out with James and we love impacting salespeople. Maybe it's tough for him to get people on as guests. That's potential. I don't know if that's a problem. So what are symptoms to that? Is that, lower quality show, right? Maybe not as many, viewers going on, which means maybe less sponsorship money.
Early bail on the show. That's early. The ones that stay in the room are the real ones. Shout out to you.
The show, or else James you're going to make me look bad. And then what impact does that have on James? His job might be on the line. Now, I'm not going to say that in my cold email, but this is him getting great guests and him putting on a great show. That is probably one of the top priorities for the show, right? And so that's his career, that's his craft. For the company, the impact is, there's revenue implication, there's, their brand building in the marketplace, there's the trust with viewers that's really hard to build. And then, have I done this before? And do I have proof? I can get to that in the message. All right. So this is really a basic way of how I want to think about prospecting James.
You know what I love about this is that it's easy to follow. Anybody can grab onto this and come up with a hypothesis of what you can provide to me. And that's the part that I think you're about to get into, right?
Yeah, exactly. So my hypothesis is pretty much what we've got here. And I want to just kind of fill in some extra nuggets from the account level and from the individual level. So a common place that I might start is I'll go to Sell Better's website. We can see any company is going to have their website somewhat updated. Here we've got the daily sales show. I can see his upcoming shows. I could see a bunch of on demand. Okay, cool. We got people. We've got reviews. That's pretty sweet. Sometimes at a different type of company, there might be some press releases. I could go into all their socials, but I don't want to take 10 minutes to find all this. So I get a pretty good understanding of what's going on at Sell Better. They got a show every single day about sales content. Okay, cool. I get the gist. I also found their LinkedIn post that tells me everything about their company in 6 slides. I could go through that. Great. You guys have a show every day. You put it on all social media. You do some email strategy, and you've got some free courses of the best salespeople. Great. I've got a good understanding of the business.
Tom, you want
Now
to
I
come
go to
sell for us? You know us really well, buddy.
I've done a lot of shows with you guys. So now I go to James. And luckily, now I'll make the caveat. Even if James doesn't have a LinkedIn presence, I've got enough here that I could send him a good cold email.
Yeah.
So if your buyers aren't there, now we're lucky because James is very active. He's got the flair with his image there. He's got, decently written about me here. He's got all these posts most days he's putting out a post.
I do. I try to put out some stuff every day, and I think that helps build the brand. So it's easy to find out more about me. That's true. I am very active.
He's got his key. So like a lot of people will put something like their key responsibilities. Okay, that's great. He wants to, put together these events. He wants to provide best practices for salespeople. He's trying to elevate the sales profession. Okay, great. Those are some pretty deep things. All right, he's a member of the board here. None of this is really active, so I'm not going to use it. I'll just kind of take a gander. Nothing else is really jumping out to me. And then the last thing I'll do is if I really wanted to sell better, James wouldn't be the only person I would reach out to. So
Ah,
what I'd like to do is probably find 3 to 5 people at this company that I might sell better to. So, okay, Suzanne is the head of content. She's going to get a message from me. Chris is the CEO. It's a relatively small business, so I bet you I can get the CEO's attention. And then, Leslie, VP of sponsorship, she probably cares about how good the show is because that matters for her sponsorship numbers too.
yeah, I want to pause for a second here because what you're talking about is a nice segue into multi-threading. And I think this is an essential strategy for every seller today. Fortunately, our friends at Gong have partnered up with us to give you an effective multi-threading guide. So we're going to put this in the chat for you right now. This is free stuff that everybody gets when they come to the show. We love this type of stuff because it's actionable. So go get this guide that we've helped put together on multi-threading. This is a very good strategy. And I want to address, Ronit, your comment there. This is an easy prospect. Why not do a cold call with somebody that's limited info or profile? No prospect is easy, regardless of how active they might be. Prospecting cold is extremely difficult. Also, keep in mind that this is a prospect in real time show, so we have to play into that. So keep in mind, we will talk about how inactive people are contacted during the show. But I am very active, and for the purpose of this show, we're going to run you through how to prospect us deliberately. And Tom is doing a great job at that with his research step. What's next, Tom?
Cool. So I've got this labeled out. Let me go back here real quick. So this is how I'm going to write a general cold email. I'm going to personalize the beginning. I'm going to talk about a problem. I'm going to talk about a potential solution, a call to action. Oops. I'm going to sign off, and I might throw a PS at the bottom.
This is the
Okay.
structure.
This is the structure. So again, I did not pre-write this email just for the sake of wanting to do this live, and I'm a little nervous. So I'm going to try to put this email together in about 2 minutes here, and we'll see how it works. So
Okay,
I
Tom, let's go.
usually
Put it together.
I usually save the personalization last. The problem, I've already done some work here. So I know, or I think that his problem is like getting great guests for the Sell Better for the daily show. I might say, hey, James, most, content producers I work with focused on landing, the highest. I don't love this so far, but I'm gonna tweak it a little bit after. So I know I want to get to that. He's trying to focus on getting high quality
I like
guests
that you're right to my
for
number
their
one priority right there. Straight to
right
it.
straight to it. Yeah. And so I might say one other thing. The solution is that, I'd love to come jam with you on the daily show to talk about my 10 plus years of being a badass sales professional and up leveling the sales profession.
Woo,
Up
that's my
leveling the
language
sales.
right there.
So I could see James as a pretty informal guy. I wouldn't say being a badass if he looked a little bit colder, but I could tell he's a pretty warm guy on LinkedIn. I used up leveling the sales profession. That's direct words from his LinkedIn there. I'm going to use a quick open-ended call to action. I'm going to say my name, and then, in the PS, I see his post here, and this is pretty unique. He saw, something about a Cuban restaurant that they don't want people selling to them or something like that. So I might put that in my personalization. I might say, hey, James, you know, saw the post about that Cuban restaurant hating on salespeople. I
Yeah.
might say, as someone with a shared value of up leveling the sales profession, wanted to reach out as someone with a shared value of up leveling the sales profession. Okay. So now hopefully I've gotten his attention there. Most content producers I work with are focused on landing the highest quality guests for their show to drive viewer engagement and happy sponsors.
Ooh, that's my language
I,
right there. I need my sponsors happy.
yeah, happy sponsors make your life a lot easier. I'd love to come jam out with you, talk about that.
You know what I
But
like
I'll,
about this email is that you kind of backed into it with all the different pieces and you didn't necessarily go in order. Now, we've got a couple of people in the chat that have a great
yeah,
point. I am
yeah,
extremely active. So let's do
yeah.
another one, right? For the
Okay,
sake of everybody in the room selling
let's do
into
it.
higher ed or selling into government or selling into manufacturing, and they're just not that active. Write an email that makes sense for somebody that doesn't have all of their lives poured out on social.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to follow the same exact framework. So like this part is going to be the same, the problem and the solution. So let's just say it's still a content show just so we can stick with the same problem. Like I actually, for everyone that's a content producer, I can use a very similar meat of the email. Now, what I
Mm.
might change is, I'm not going to say the daily show. I'm going to call it the higher ed show. I'd love to come, and I might change my lingo a little bit. I'd love to connect with you. I might make it a little bit more formal
Yep.
on, and I might not say badass. I might say I'm a President's Club winner,
Oh,
to
look
add
at how that goes.
a little more credibility there, and I'm still going to throw in my CTA. Now, what's going to change here is that I don't have all these posts from James. So I might stick that even just at the account level. And I might say, hey, higher ed team, you know, I saw your press release
There you go.
about a new show you're releasing on YouTube next month, right? So in
Go.
this fake example, I saw something on their company website that I called out, and I just ignored everything that I found on James's.
Yes. And then you're still going to use that PS. I love this PS option that people do because I've heard a lot of different things. PS and then a quick note about something that you might find about them. PS
Yeah,
and then something about the company. PS and then something personal about
yeah,
you, right?
yeah,
I've heard a lot of different strategies there. So I love the PS strategy. We want to move on from the email. We've done the research,
yeah,
we've done the email. What's next on your prospecting list if you're selling to sell better, Tom?
yeah. So the next thing I'm going to do in most sequences that I do, I have a triple touch on day one. So I'm going to send an email, I'm going to send a LinkedIn message, and I'm going to make a cold call. So I might go to James here in this example, and you can see these are real messages. But I could go back here if we don't want to expose ourselves, I guess. Not that we're saying
That's
anything
fine.
weird. But I might say something like, hey, James, you know, caught the Daily Show today with Tom. Loved the episode. You know, just shot you a note and wanted to put a name to it. That's pretty low touch. That's pretty low friction.
There's
I'm not
no
coming in too
friction in
hot.
that. It's very casual, and I would probably accept right away based on the casual nature because that's my nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if he responded, I'll go a little bit deeper. If he says, cool, glad you liked it, I might say, nice. Like I wouldn't go straight to me. I might say, yeah, that was a really great guest. How are you landing those? What's your process of landing great guests? Or
Right.
do you have your schedule filled up for July? Like, what's your process look like? I'm trying to just do maybe a sentence or two. I'm trying to treat it more like a text message than I am, an email when I'm going on LinkedIn.
I love this because we're touching so many different parts of the prospecting process, and y'all usually only get to see one or two pieces. You mentioned that the next step is that you're going to make a call. Are you ready to run that call with me?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Hello.
Hey, James, this is Tom from TA Sales. Does that ring a bell?
Tom, you're kind of all over my content, probably. And this, if y'all think this is BS, go look at Sarah Plowman. You know how many people she calls and they recognize her from being online? This is real. But yeah, I think your name is familiar, Tom. I've seen you around.
Oh, nice. Have you seen some of my content on LinkedIn?
I have, yes. And I attend the Sell Better show and I've seen you there. I run the Sell Better show.
Oh, okay. Nice. Well, James, look, the reason for my call is I'm talking with a lot of content producers, and a lot of them are saying that they're really focused on the quality of guests that they're getting going into kind of the summer slowdown and really want to drive viewer engagement and happier sponsors. I'm just curious, is that something that you're focused on right now?
So I think this is that point where we can stop the call because you've earned the time to talk, and I think your messages all line up. And for those of you that are skeptical, saying, "Well, this is a role play," it absolutely is. But look at all the lead up that Tom has had to earn the opportunity when he finally does get me to pick up the phone. Margaret, yes, you're going to get the recording simply by being in the room, so you'll have this template anyway. And then, of course, Nick, all touches are same day. The 1, 2, 3 approach does happen for same day, and some people spread it out over time. This is all about knowing your buyer, your ICP, and what that feels like for them. So there's a little bit of a B test approach to how you want to go about that first 1, 2, 3 that he's mentioned here. Tom, anything to say about these three channels before we show them what the longevity looks like? I really want to show your example with Paul.
Well, the one thing I'll put here is that you asked at the beginning of the call, do people spend 5 to 10 minutes researching each prospect? And if you watch this, you'll say, yeah, I probably did spend 5 to 10 minutes on the research for James. But what I want to do, and we're not going to go through every single example, a lot of this research that I just found, I could use to these other contacts that I wanted to reach out to at Sell Better, right? So I know enough about the business now that I could reach out to Suzanne and Kevin and everyone else here with slightly different messages, but the meat of it is going to be the same. And that's how I can get more touches out of, more specific research.
Yeah, and that's a great point for Jeffrey Pearson's question in the Q&A. What kind of outbound sequences are we looking at with Tom's example of the multi-channel approach? If you think about it, what we've got, look at Kevin is trying, he said, do it. Come and get us, Tom. It's all right there for you. But Jeff, it's a great question that you have. If you think about the amount of touches that it takes here, if he prospected into Suze, myself, Kevin, Will, Megan, and Chris, that's 3 touches per person. You're really starting to spread out all those touches through an organization, building that relationship with a team and not an individual. We all know that there are multiple stakeholders in almost every deal. And I can't get away from you not showing this example with Paul. This went back to 2018. So Tom's pulling this example up right now so that he can run you guys through this. But if you look at how he earned this opportunity over the course of time, that is what's impressive. And this is the mentality you must have in the modern sales age. Plant seeds, y'all. One day
Yeah.
they become trees. Go ahead, Tom.
All right. So this is a pretty cool example that actually happened this week. So hopefully, if Paul's here, he doesn't mind me sharing this. But
Shout out to you,
Paul
Paul.
was Paul. Shout out to Paul. He was a client of mine. You can see in 2018 when I worked at a company called Tech Target. I met him that week before. We had a blast. Apparently, we talked about my podcast. Okay, so you can see over time, I would send him LinkedIn's. I would send him emails. I might text him. I congratulated him on a new gig, even though he wasn't in my territory, just kind of kept that going. We're shooting the shit. You can see now this goes into 2019, 2020. Congrats on another new role. I'm just staying in touch. I'm just marinating with him. 2022, I'm helping him with a little bit of DIN stuff. He's asking me about sales nav. We get on a call. We're not doing any sort of business here. Like there's no money being exchanged. We're just helping each other out. Talk to him about a retreat I'm running. And after all this, he follows a lot of my content. We're going back and forth. On Wednesday, he hits me up and says, hey, our team's had a tough time booking meetings. our CEO is looking for new ideas. Later that day, he introduced me to his CEO, and he sent me a 4-paragraph message on exactly what's going on in his business that can help prep me for that call on Thursday. And so that is an example that happens quite frequently because I've talked about my stovetop sequence quite a bit on the show and other episodes, so I won't get all the way into it. But by nurturing people, playing a long game, playing an infinite game, I want to be the person that when he hears his team needs meetings, I want him to think about me. And in this case, he did. And I want that to be true for as many people as I can.
Y'all, that is the example of playing the long game. We talk about it a lot. We rarely see it in true form. From 2018 all the way through to now, he still has that client, and that's a client he earned successfully over time. Real quick, I want you to tell the story of when you walked away from a deal and did the right thing to earn even more trust, but not the business, which I think is a
Yeah.
lost art in this current environment.
Yeah, I mean, this happened earlier this year, like a month or two ago. I was approached by a customer. Actually, he was a customer. He's the president of a company that they were my customer when I worked at Gong. They approached me about sales training, and it was a very specific thing that they were looking for. And if you've been in sales and you've been in AE, you've probably had times where you've been on a call, and in your head, you're like, I think we can do this, question mark, but I'm not quite sure. It might be a little over my skis. And I kind of felt myself overselling on the second call, like saying things that I feel like I don't know if we're quite ready to do or ready to handle or have the content for. And then I came back after that call the next week and just emailed the whole team, called off what our next meeting was going to be, and just really bowed out and said, hey, look, I don't think that I'm at the place where I can handle what we're talking about here. This isn't exactly what we do. I don't think I'm going to be your best partner. Here's the links to 2 different people that I think would be better suited. If you want a direct intro, I'm happy to lend it to you. And so I took that would have been if I closed it the biggest deal that I've ever sold, but I think I would have underserved them. I don't think I was the right partner, and I haven't seen any money from them on that. It's not like that resulted in me closing another deal, but I do hope that when they have a need down the line, because I didn't actually oversell it or lose integrity, that we might have an opportunity for me to earn their business in the future. And if nothing else, it helps me sleep at night. And I think that's a little bit of a lost art, is stepping away when you don't think you're the best option.
I've had to learn this the hard way a couple of times because you close a deal and you think that you have done something good, only to find out that what you really closed on was a little bit of a headache for what happens after that deal closes, right? I've had some contracts that were 3-month contracts that ended up being 8-month contracts. And there's a lot of integrity that goes along with recognizing the opportunities that we need to be able to walk away from those deals, or at the very least, revisit them at a deeper level so that you can really understand. Rosie, shout out to you. Thank you. She says, I love that you're talking about integrity in sales. This is a
Mm,
great episode, but glad I joined today. Thank you so much, Rosie, for coming. Tom,
thanks, Rosie.
I always do some last thoughts about our prospecting. You've covered a lot of bases and shown us so many great examples today, and we've talked through so much. If you have everybody coming away today with a couple of tips that are going to help them prospect in 2024, we're halfway through the year. A lot of people are looking at their numbers going, I really need to step up my game. What are the couple of things they could do, low hanging fruit, that's going to help them win today?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, everyone here can really focus on problem prospecting, whether your prospects are active on LinkedIn or they don't even have a company website. The better that you know the problem that you're solving, if you can speak the language of your customer as well or better than they can, you're already light years ahead of any other person that's going to reach out to them. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is, this is the opposite of what I did on this call, but I would actually set up different times. I would research,
Hmm.
and then I would make my calls, and then I would send emails actually in different time blocks so that you can really get into a rhythm, let your brain like go into deep focus mode. And then the third thing is just do it every single day, even if, I call it going into outbound mode, whether you can do it 60 minutes a day as an AE or a couple different hour-long blocks if you're a BDR or SDR. Can you just do the work every day and know that in the grand scheme of things, you're going to put yourself in the best chance you can to hit your number?
Do the work every day. Wise words from a wise person that's doing this all the time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I want to remind you all about Tom's boot camp and his goal to hit 100 people. That $500 card could be yours. So we're going to drop that link one more time in the chat for those of you. Hey, you might know somebody that is about to be put on a PIP. This would be a great boot camp for that human to attend. So feel free to share it around. You're all going to get a survey. Tell us what you liked about this show. Tell us what you want to see more of. I love the opinions that I get back from all of you so much. And I want to thank you for coming out and spending your time with us on this Friday afternoon. It does matter. So we're going to bring you another stellar guest next time, right here on the Sell Better Daily Sales Show episode in the bag. We'll see y'all later. We're rooting for you. Have a great day. Go get them, everybody.